Most Americans won't remember 2025 as a dramatic year because 2025 wasn't the year the global economy failed. It was the year it changed direction, quietly, structurally, and in ways that didn't immediately announce themselves. If you lived through it, it probably didn't feel historic. It felt confusing, uneven, and tight, but not catastrophic. And yet, for many people, something felt off. Money didn't stretch the way it used to. Long term planning felt harder, consumer confidence felt thinner, but for many people, it was that tension between what the numbers said and what life felt like that was the defining signal of 2025. And it is the reason why 2026 won't feel like a fresh start, but like the next phase of something already in motion. At the start of 2025, the dominant assumption was simple. The hard part was already over. Inflation had come down from its peak. Interest rates were no longer rising aggressively. Supply chains looked more functional than they had in years. The expectation, especially in the US, was that the economy would normalize, but normalization never really arrived. Instead, what emerged was something more subtle, a new baseline. Prices stopped exploding, but they didn't fall. Interest rates stopped rising, but they stayed high. Market growth continued, but it slowed and fragmented, and that fragmentation mattered more than any headline number, because by then, the economy wasn't moving as one system anymore, but a collection of systems adjusting at different speeds. For the stock markets, 2025 looked manageable. Stocks fluctuated but held together. Bond markets stabilized, even if yields stayed elevated. There was no panic, but the markets weren't telling the full story. They rarely do. And what households were feeling in 2025 wasn't probability, it was pressure. Part of that pressure came from prices that refused to reset. Another defining feature of 2025 was caution. Businesses hesitated. They delayed expansion, hired selectively, guarded margins. Most households did the same. Big decisions were postponed, purchases were stretched, and savings became defensive instead of aspirational. This was compression behavior that showed the economy was tightening. At the same time, governments around the world were making choices that would quietly shape the next decade. Their spending shifted toward defense, energy security, industrial policy, and technological advantage. And it's important to mention that these are long term commitments, and long term commitments always change the math of the economy. Geopolitically, 2025 was the year the world stopped pretending fragmentation was temporary. Global trade was rerouting. Western alliances were being tested. Energy was fragile. The global system reorganized, and reorganization is expensive. Redundancy replaced efficiency. Security replaced optimization. Control replaced speed. Those choices made sense in a less predictable world, but they also raised baseline costs everywhere. One of the most important and least discussed outcomes of 2025 was psychological. For years, Americans had been told that once inflation came down, things would feel better. But in 2025, when inflation came down and things still felt heavy, that broke an assumption many people didn't realize they were holding. It forced a reevaluation, and that realization was unsettling because it suggested that the challenge ahead wasn't about survival, it was about adaptation. By the end of 2025, a quiet truth had emerged. The era of cheap money was not coming back quickly. The era of effortless globalization was over, and the era of predictable cycles had faded. In its place was something more demanding, an economy that rewards flexibility over assumption. And this is where 2026 comes in. Because 2026 is about consequences. The decisions made in 2025 will start to fully express themselves. Prices may not surge, but they may not fall. Interest rates may ease, but they may not feel easy. Growth may continue, but it may feel narrower. Households will feel pressured because the system continues asking more of them. Understanding 2025 correctly matters because it changes how you interpret what comes next. If you think 2025 was a holding pattern, 2026 will feel disappointing. If you see 2025 as a turning point, 2026 will make sense. The world didn't break in 2025, it recalibrated, and recalibration always comes before a new phase. That's what makes 2025 important. It was the year the global economy quietly decided what kind of future it was moving toward.